And then another solution that comes in is to reduce the common drops from bosses and reduce the amount of alkables that you get from PVM, and perhaps institute a kill rate cap on the boss, which institutes its own set of problems, I have to say. I was with this solution until the kill rate cap. For what it's worth, I'll say that my simple, and you can call it a simple solution that you can get it out in a sentence or two for this entire problem, is to reduce the common drops and alkables from bosses by something like a quarter to a third, so 25 to 40% or so, and maybe increase the GE fee by 1 to 2%. And that's how I would handle this. I wouldn't do anything else with kill rate caps or anything else extravagant on this. But I think we should go through the kill rate cap and what was talked about on the live stream, because it did sound like something that he was very favorable of. And looking at it, it doesn't seem like it's the right way to go, because when you start looking at this, you realize that everybody has higher DPM than they did 10 years ago. And throughout this entire thing, he was using General Guerrador as an example, which is probably a bad example when we were looking at this, Taxi and I, earlier. Because
I thought that too. And before you jump into... Just because it's very, very dated, and it's not worth anything.
Doing at all. Really.
So,
I mean, I think the point was kill time, not.
But you have to have something. I mean,
you got to start from somewhere,
you
right?
Have
because
something.
if Guerrador had a 15-second respawn time, and you took a minute to kill him, he would respawn instantly, and then with that wouldn't be the most efficient boss for you. You'd have to move up and elsewhere. And this is... Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, it still doesn't matter, though, if you're walking away with nothing. Nobody's going to want to do that. But before we jumped down into, like, the kill limits and stuff like that, I just wanted to say the one solution that we talked about in the bit, I still think would have been the best, which is to keep things as they were intended. Shane, you'll like this. You know, we have this whole concept of original intent over here on this side of the border. And I think that's something to kind of think about. Bossing the original intent, right? It was those big drops. Those big, ooh, yeah, oh. And the commons, if they came in from normal, yes, still combat, but a lower level, steady money. It's not the big adrenaline, dopamine bumps that the bossing, right? And then you had your skilling, which is lower, but steady. To me, it seemed like that was a really good solution because it maintained the vision.
I still think that's the best way to go. I just think it's very disruptive. Whereas I think just reducing commons and alkables and then increasing the GE fee, I think that's the simpler thing to do and not as disruptive.
I agree.
I think ours from the bit is still the best, but it would be very disruptive.
Well, what's that they say about making omelets? Or
you can't crack eggs without making an omelet. That's what they say.
I think it's the other way around.
That's not what they say, Shane. That's not what they say, buddy.
Well, I almost got that one right. At least it wasn't the pudding
problem. You almost did.
At least it wasn't...
Putting the pudding in the mouth, right?
What was it? Pudding in your mouth?
Yeah.
Good God.
So, yeah, and I mean, with that, I think it really comes down to a question of how much do they want to shake the box, right?
They don't.
They won't. They don't. They won't.
They won't.
And
you can't. You can't. And that's the wonderful thing about our bits, folks, is that we shake the box as much as we want, and that's why we do those from month to month. But more on that when we get to the Patreon section after. But go ahead, Tanis. I feel like I interrupted you mid-thought there.
Oh, no, I mean, I don't think they would. They would do anything like that. You guys are you're probably right. You know, it would be disruptive. Maybe it would be too disruptive. Um, you know that. So when we get into the actual economy side, I have some ideas to how to make it a little bit better. But for now, I think that was as good as we could do.
Yeah.
With the drops, right? Like
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, let's have a quick look at what the respawn time would look like. And the way this was framed is that if you kill something under its set respawn time, you don't need to wait for it to respawn. So if Zamorak had a 3-minute respawn time and it took you 3 minutes to kill it, that would be the most profitable boss for you. And the idea comes from the following example. You take that 3-minute respawn time at Zamorak, and then with this you might assume that Vindicta, for example, has a 15-second respawn time. In theory, again. In theory. Then with that, you'd be able to kill 12 Vindicta in those 3 minutes. Therefore, the problem comes in is that Zamorak needs to be 12 times as profitable.
Why not do both?
I was wondering that too.
That's a terrible idea. Anyone who's at the point where they're min-maxing times is well past the point where any of this would affect them.
Precisely.
Yep.
Precisely. And then you're also, with this, you're forcing people to stand around a content that they like. And I think that's bad game design to do that, because you're forcing them to take a break. Because at that point, you might as well close the app and go play something else.
Yeah.
And that's the way I see the biggest pitfall of the respawn timer. Other pitfalls that were identified on the live stream include issues with the collection log, in effect adding more time for completing those, hard to find the right boss that would be most efficient for you, and Iron Man concerns for farming components and supplies, and then as well, respawn time between Reaper tasks, for example. And then Mod Jack's other idea is to just nerf old bosses into the ground completely, and he said that seems worse in his eyes. And in some ways, I see that as kind of what we were talking about, like removing the commons from those other bosses with this. But I'm most happy with my idea of adjusting the drop table around commons and alkables. Don't over-engineer the solution, and adjust the grand exchange fee, if necessary, on this.